She and I went to where sanitariums had been. We went to three spots. And so the first one was that historic sort of house in that historic part of Fargo, okay? And that was a stone sanitarium and hospital. And then we went to where the Fargo sanitarium had been. And that's where Bethany is on University.
Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I'm talking about? Yeah, okay. We went there. Where the Keeley Institute, and that was another sanitarium had been, and that was pretty much where Prairie St. John's is now.
Okay.
You know? So I did that with Heather Zinger here in town. And while doing that, it was just on my mind why it is that sanitariums and asylums and state hospitals are utilized so often as settings for horror films, or that sort of setting is exploited. And then I brought up horror movies and psychological thrillers. Yeah, so let's set this film right in this dilapidated or abandoned sort of sanitarium or mental health facility from way back when. And if you go in though, you're not going to come out alive, or you're going to lose your mind or lose your soul. And you had brought up films where, it's not really exploitation, but more of drama, or I don't know, it's a story to really inform people of what events that had taken place. It's more historic or historical.
Did you want me to talk about it a little bit
go ahead.
for the video? I didn't want to be redundant with you. Okay, Changeling. I love that movie. The first time I saw it, I didn't realize it was based on a true story. But then I watched it again later and I realized it is. And it's a Clint Eastwood movie directed. So,
really?
Yeah, so it has that kind of, I don't know if you've seen some of the movies in his canon, but it has that kind of like capturing real life, but obviously taking some artistic liberties sort of feeling. But I really like his directing style. The film is about a woman whose son is kidnapped, and then the Los Angeles Police Department return a boy who is not her son and refuse to believe her when she insists that it's not her son. And they try to make her feel like her hysteria, which once again, a word very rooted in the discrimination of women in mental health, that her hysteria is as a result of the trauma that she's been through, and that she can't possibly recognize her own son because he's been gone for a few months and boys change. And then she notices things like he's shorter, like she gives him a bath and notices these things, and still they won't believe her. And the detective is so concerned about how it would look to the police department for them to admit they were wrong. Actually, it was a state psychiatric hospital that he commits her to. And then she finds out while she's there that many of the women there have been abused by police husbands, or have been in situations with the police where instead of facing criticism, they just put these women in. And I'm not sure if all of the stories of the women in the hospital are based in reality, but I think it was noted like that the specific cases of the women, I think, was an artistic liberty, but it was noted that many women were discriminated against by police and put into sanitariums and psychiatric hospitals. Sorry, I'm like rambling.
No, ramble. You ought to, because yes, this is really scary. That kind of fear, yes, of losing our autonomy, but also, yes, being tortured. And
having no one believe you, or having people believe you, but not accepting the way that you are as being right. And I think that's terrifying, because then we have to learn, or I say we and you, but I'm meaning the characters of the individuals, or we're talking about film or real life. The individuals need to learn how to perform in a way that they can be believed in the way that the people with the power want to believe them. It's this awful like hegemonic cycle of like just torture. Well, I wanted to quickly bring up, because we didn't talk about this on the phone the other day, and there is no evidence of ECT or lobotomy in this film, but the setting of the psychiatric institution is like paramount to the narrative, and that's the Michael J. Fox film, The Frighteners. I don't know if you've seen that movie.
Yes, I have. Now that one hasn't come up. My goodness, yeah, I've seen that film.
The Busey, I forget his name, Jake Busey, I think, is the antagonist. And he's an orderly who perpetuates danger and harm against the people in the institution. And then there's ghosts, and you brought up this idea like, oh, there's ghosts and they're haunting it, and I thought of that when you said that. Yes.
Okay, what movie gets watched probably the most, right, around Halloween? That's John Carpenter's film, Halloween. Yes. But it's like, there's one film where that comes up, an institution of a sort, and an individual who, now as far as I know, he doesn't have a diagnosis.
No, he's just pure evil.
Yeah, he's just evil. Yeah, his doctor, Dr. Sam Loomis, to talk about that. Okay, so Dr. Sam Loomis, he says, like, I spent years trying to reach him. Okay, so right away, we're finding out this guy cares.
Yeah.
About people. He cares about people and patients.
Yeah, and the families. He talks to the families and the patients, and yeah.
Yeah, and so in that film, we find out the character, Dr. Sam Loomis, did try and help him.
He did, yeah. And that's one of the things I like about that film.
And then he realized, what was behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
Like the attempt, or like the intentional choice to not tie the concept of or diagnosis of pure evil to a specific state of mental health, I think is probably, for me, I feel like that's best. Because if Michael Myers were like, oh, he's bipolar, that's why he did that, well, that stigmatizes everyone with bipolar disorder. Yes.
I don't know if I'll be watching too many of those sorts of films now, probably out of a respect.
Yeah, it always makes me uncomfortable when I'm watching a film that's purposefully or tactlessly utilizing mental health as a narrative device without actually taking into account the stigma that it might be reproducing.
Yes.
I think that's why I like The Frighteners, is because it is a comedy. It is funny, like there's, it is horrifying. There are some moments of like action, but in all, like it's supposed to be kind of like a goofy, funny, it's even like a romantic film, there's an element which is, it's got it all, and Jake Busey is such an amazing actor and such a character that it's hard to take that movie too seriously. So maybe that's what it is. It's like movies that use these elements as narrative devices that take themselves too seriously. Maybe, I don't know, is it dangerous? What do you think?
That's why I brought up Halloween. Like it serves the story, and they're not giving you too many details, or they're not claiming, that it's one diagnosis or one condition that's causing this. It's just evil.
Yeah.
And I do believe that's a good idea. And yeah, in some films it does serve the story a bit. I brought up, or a lot. I brought up Silence of the Lambs. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, in some moments it's got some shock value in there, but also, it makes sense that this character, Hannibal Lecter, where Hannibal Lecter is being kept and why he's being kept there makes sense.
Like his actions, it's understandable that his actions have met that response.
Yes,
just like with Michael Myers in a way, even though he was a child when it happened, but action and response. Whereas with like Return to Oz, it's like, well, how do those actions warrant that response?
Hello, Dorothy, how are you?
I wish I wasn't tied down.
Nothing to worry about.
What are those?
Oh, when you're ready, we'll just put them over your ears, and pretty soon they'll draw all those unpleasant dreams out of your head. Then when you wake up, you'll never be bothered by them again.
Yeah, like there might be some shred of the truth, but there are also varying degrees of that situation. Like there are varying degrees of bipolar, and I'm sure I hope this doesn't make you uncomfortable if I bring it up, but I'm sure like when people bring up, they hear autism and they're like, oh, Rain Man. It's like, well, not everyone's like Rain Man, and it's like and of course, Rain Man might be a very accurate depiction for one person in the world who might be just like that. But it's not everyone with autism is Rain Man.
So I guess I've got 2 final questions, okay?
Oh, okay.
So the first one is, do you have any movie recommendations?
I'm trying to think of anything I've watched lately that was phenomenal, and you're putting me on the spot, so I'm a little bit nervous.
I'll give you one, okay?
Okay, great, and they'll give me time to think.
Sure. Capote.
I love that movie. Well, I'll bring up 2 suggestions since one of them is, I don't know. It is Halloween season. On Netflix, there's the film The Babysitter, and there's also The Babysitter 2, which I think it's just kind of like a delightful, gory. If you're adverse to gore, don't watch it. But it's just like a delightfully well-written, gory romp into the Halloween or the horror comedy spectrum. So that's my first suggestion if you're looking for like a good Halloween. And it's on Netflix, so But it's a cute movie. Also, the movie Little Voice, I don't know if you've seen that movie, is a great movie about someone. We were talking about people sometimes who are a little bit different, and they're not always perceived in, you know, some certainly. It's not about anyone institutionalized, but it is about someone who goes to the beat of their own drum. It's about a girl who can emulate the voices of famous female vocalists. Like, she can sing Judy Garland just like Judy Garland. And then her mother taps into this talent and tries to exploit her. And then she falls in love, and Ewan McGregor tries to save her. And she's a little bit mousy and closeted, you know, like her mom's always like, go out there, meet a husband. And then she knows she doesn't, and she just wants to listen to her records. And it's actually like a really beautiful story about just, you know, being cool with yourself and not letting people try to change you or take advantage of you. I don't know, I think it's a great film, but